June 1942, a vessel called the Port Nicholson was carrying a load of 71.4 tons of platinum en route from Halifax into Boston. She was intercepted by a U-87 and sunk with all of her platinum on board. It was kind of forgotten through history until the 90s when these documents that it was even on board had become declassified. The subsea research company pursued a knowledge of where this vessel was and actually located it.
Wow. So what is that? Hey, I don't know what's going on here, but we may have just found a shipwreck.
There's been a lot of talk about whether or not this is the Port Nicholson. Very important to us to identify the ship, to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is. So what we did is, we'd already had a lot of data of like the ship anchor, the length of the ship on sonar. Every puzzle that we looked at fit into it. The actual smoking gun to any shipwreck is going to be its name, located on the stern or up on the bow. We took the ROV up along the bow to do just that. There's two porthole windows. And if you look at the ship historically, off of the forecastle, the raised portion of the main deck on the bow, the ROV travels down about 5 windows to get to the double set. They're very close together. We wanted to, one, identify that there's the correct number of portholes and then see a double set of portholes. We do. So then we make our maneuver, down below them, and the first letters, if it is a Port Nicholson, you should see is the letter I and the letter C. As the ROV begins its descent off the double windows, and sure enough, within a short period of time, you can see the I come into view on the left-hand side of the screen and the C right next to it, just like it should be. These letters are camouflaged due to biological life and decay and oxidization of the metal. They are difficult to see and they're somewhat camouflaged, but I assure you, if you look closely and with a little help of enhancement here, you'll be able to see each letter. And then if you watch it on your own without any enhancements of highlighting the letter, you'll notice every one of them on your own once you know what to look for. The letter L is coming into view now. This letter is probably the most difficult for any of us to see. The biological life is really covering it. Every other letter there, the N, the I, the C, the A, they're very clearly there. When it gets to the S, you can actually still see the black paint of the S. But this clearly identifies this vessel as the Port Nicholson. There's no way it's no other ship. This being within X number of miles away from the historical data of where she sank, there's no shadow of a doubt here that it's not the right ship. And that being said, knowing what was on board her makes this a pretty exciting operation. Next mission that when we do go out to work with the vessel, these letterings have become somewhat important. We'll actually be going up there and cleaning these letters up so they're more legible. Europe is attacked by Germany. Russia's really getting a lot of pressure. The United States in October 41 wasn't even in the war yet, but they opened up Lend-Lease to be able to lend or lease equipment, military stores, tanks, airplanes to Russia and Britain to help them with their war effort. Convoys of ships were gathered with Lend-Lease products heading into Russia to offload all of this stuff. Well, that had to be paid for. Russia was paying it by sending gold back. They usually put it on warships. Give an example, the HMS Edinburgh. She was coming back with 465 bars of gold bullion on board. Hitler realized that this stuff was coming into port and they wanted to put an end to it. So they devoted a lot of submarines and even surface fleet action to put an end to it. Ultimately, after a couple of days' battles, the Edinburgh did succumb to flooding and went down and took a large number of sailors with her. We know this happened because in 1981, a fellow named Rick Wharton led up an operation to recover that gold and was successful. Did an operations, I think in 81, 82. They used human divers to recover it, and the gold, sure enough, was on board with serial numbers from Russia, which proves that Russia was doing this beyond the documentation in history that says they were. It really was happening. Port Nicholson was part of a convoy called XB-25. X being represented as Halifax, B is represented as Boston. They had 5 or 6 escorts, which was kind of unique that they had that many escorts for this particular route because it was somewhat of a secure zone. When the U.S. had, up until June of 42, had already lost 358 ships, or right around that number, the XB route hadn't lost any. It was a pretty safe route. It was pretty much unmolested by the German U-boats. However, on June 15, 1942, that wasn't the case. The U-87 was just coming out of the Boston area, intercepted the Port Nicholson convoy of XB-25. She fired 2 torpedoes at the lead ship, which was the Port Nicholson. Port Nicholson takes a torpedo in midship. She takes one in the stern. The torpedo hole that we know from being down there with the ROV is 25 feet by 35 feet. The torpedo hit on the stern is not even distinguishable. It caused so much damage. As the sun was coming up, the captain, the chief engineer, officer, and 6 other able-bodied seaman types took a longboat over to Port Nicholson, climbed up on the bow, and went below decks to see what kind of damage they had. However, upon getting on board with a very short amount of time, the stern of the Port Nicholson starting to settle. Witness accounts say within 60 seconds the Port Nicholson was standing almost vertical and was out of sight within another 30 seconds. She went that quickly. I think it's intriguing that when the Captain Jeffries and that crew of 9 guys went back to the Port Nicholson, the first thing that I would have done as a captain is not crawled into cargo bay 1. I would have went back to my wheelhouse. They didn't do that. They went up into the cargo bay to assess damage, but the damage was 200 feet back, midship. But they went down below in the bow. Why did they go up there? What was pertinent up in cargo bay 1? Maybe they were trying to access the lower decks knowing that that was probably dry. Very good possibility. But I've often wondered if it had something to do with the cargo. Because maybe, can we get this cargo off before she goes? Third mate was actually already in the water when she rolled over. One other thing that the third mate says, on a side note, in his report, and when he closes out the statement of how it happened, he says, in closing, I would like to commend the people that actually went back to the Port Nicholson to try to save her valuable cargo. For him to say that as a third mate, to try to save the valuable cargo, I found interesting, because what he should have said was the attempt to save our ship. He didn't. He was talking about a valuable cargo, and I always found that interesting. The documents that we're showing you here, clearly shows on the manifest that they were shipping platinum. That's what's supposedly on the Port Nicholson. This shows that they were doing it. We have other documents that show on the manifest of the Port Nicholson that she was carrying 71.4 tons. The manifest, I guess, would be the smoking gun, so to speak, of why we're here, why we're doing the Port Nicholson. It was discovered back in the mid-90s that she had it on board. Then this whole operation started back in, I believe, 2008 to go out and locate her. And of course, historically, where she sank, she wasn't there. History records where she sank is actually where she got hit by torpedoes. And Port Nicholson didn't sink in that spot because she stayed up for 6 hours after she got hit. And the Sea Hunter locates the ship, and then, of course, we mobilize to try to recover all of this platinum that's on board. The Port Nicholson today, looking at the damage of the stern, it appears that she hit stern first at a pretty good speed, and then she ended up lying on her port side. The wheelhouse has catastrophic damage. The radio house, the top level, isn't even existent anymore. It's spread out all around her. The stack broke off on the way down. That sits about 150 feet off to the north of her, but it does expose the torpedo holes. And one other thing that we found, which is actually helping us as we research this vessel, is all the cargo hatches that were in place have fallen off. So the cargo hatches are accessible, which makes life a lot easier for someone who's trying to determine the contents of the vessel. The historical data we have on hand right now, and we're always in pursuit of new data pertaining to where does the cargo of platinum, the way I call it, live. What's its address? Where did they put it? This is 71 tons of platinum, and platinum is so dense that it would fit in a small room, so they had to spread it out a little bit. If they didn't, it would actually bend the transverse beams in the cargo holds. Other ships that did bullion runs to Canada back in 41 to Suffolk, they put it in all in one spot and they actually bent some beams. This particular cargo is supposedly located in Cargo Bay 2. That's our target of interest currently. We've been inside Cargo Bay 1, down past the tween deck. We have not gone all the way to the keel due to just the dangers of an ROV penetrating a ship that deep. Cargo Bay 2, where the platinum is supposedly stored, we've been into that area of the ship. That area has a lot of damage. There's a lot of debris everywhere, a lot of vertical beams, a lot of piping, and it blocks the way about 15 to 20 feet in. Without moving that stuff out of the way, it's hard to penetrate any farther. To get below decks from Cargo Bay 2, we're going to have to find another route. Cargo Bay 1, extremely accessible, hardly any damage, and it's believed that down in the depths of the ship, that Cargo Bay 1 and Cargo Bay 2 were actually a common cargo bay at the bottom of the ship. So we believe if we swim all the way to the bottom of Cargo Bay 1, hang a right, we should be able to swim into Cargo Bay 2 without any impeding structures, no support walls in between, because it was a common area so that it could load a large amount of cargo down there. Or we actually could probably access it from the keel because she lays on her side and be able to cut a hole into the area where the platinum is and be able to enter that way, which is exactly how they recovered the gold bars on the Edinburgh. They cut a hole in the back on the hull and removed that plate and entered in that way. Down on the bottom where the platinum would be, everything fell to there, so there's a large debris pile, and it's a heavy debris pile. However, the rest of the ship, it's amazing how intact she is, other than where the torpedoes hit, where the superstructure damage of the ship bending after 70 years of kind of being propped up. The rest of the ship is amazing. The strategy of the search on the Port Nicholson for the platinum starts on the outside of the vessel. We've come across several different crates. We don't know what's inside them until we get them up on top. But like when we were talking about the Edinburgh wreck earlier, those boxes were roughly 18 inches long by 7 1/4 high. We contacted Rick Wharton again, about that box. He sent us some pictures of what his box actually looked like. So we were down there looking for those boxes. Are they similar to the crates that we're seeing? And sure enough, we have what we believe are ammo boxes. What's unique about these boxes is that when you handle them with the ROV, we know that the ROV can manhandle about 175 pounds effectively. Can't pick it up, but it can drag it. We know this because one of our small anchors got fetched up in fishnet and we had to drag it free. The ROV successfully dragged it out into an area about 50 feet away to an area where it could be recovered. These boxes have that kind of weight. Even these small ones appear to be over 100 pounds. They're very difficult to move. You use full power inputs and it just kind of laughs at you. The larger crates, the 4x2s, those are unmovable. The ROV can't even move those. But what's unique about the small box is the Edinburgh wrecks box had 5 bars of gold in them, roughly 130-pound box. These boxes have a similar weight and they're similar size. So that's the big chase right now, is to get one of these boxes up on top. They're very similar to the gold boxes the Edinburgh recovered. The weight of these boxes is indicated right here with the ROV trying to roll over the box. When the hand comes off of the box, the ROV just pops right up. That was because I had full power input just to slowly roll that box over. This box is roughly 16 to 18 inches long. It's hard to describe what you could fit in a 16 to 18 inch long box that weighs over 100 pounds. You eliminate a lot of things. I mean, a box of wrenches, probably not. A box of ammo, of bullets, probably not. Whatever's inside this box is very, very dense and it's very, very heavy. Due to the size of the box and how we're seeing it here, I believe that it's a very good possibility that this has gold or platinum on the inside. There is one area called the trapezoid area where we actually saw a trapezoidal shaped ingot. At the time, we did not have a manipulator on the ROV that could handle that when we needed a $20,000 robot arm, which we have now because we weren't able to pick up that ingot. To get to that area, though, is very difficult. The currents are real high out there, visibility is really low. The ROV, has a significant amount of power, but sometimes it's just very difficult to get to that. And we've tried several attempts to get back to that trapezoid area to go look for that one particular ingot because we saw it. The current ROV is inspection class ROV. You can see some of our pains that we've and frustrations of trying to get one of these up. We've tried to put lines around them. With one manipulator on the ROV and limited with her power, it's kind of like trying to tie your shoes with one hand and no thumbs. It's doable, but we haven't been successful at it yet. The ingot that we saw in the trapezoid area is going to be a strategy that has to be fully exercised before we go into the hull of the ship and risk equipment that can be $500,000. The superstructure is more difficult for the ROV due to the number of debris items, booms, cables, fishnet, smokestack. Very difficult and hazardous to the ROV because it tangles on everything. If we can get one on the outside of the ship, then we prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, just like when we did with the name, that this is on here. And then we'll be able to acquire some of the more sophisticated equipment that's going to be needed to do a full recovery of 4,300 ingots. Well, the next step in the strategy is, of course, to continue to try to get to that trapezoid area to recover these crates, to find ultimately what's inside them. If it's not platinum inside the box, we need to know. To do that, we're going to have to recover one. We're hoping that this is the correct box. But if it's not, we continually, in any strategy we've done so far in these searches, eliminate an area, eliminate another area, and keep moving. There are a couple areas that are high interest, such as the trapezoid area that has 1 foot ingots lying about that we're trying to get to prove, okay, are these actual ingots or are they a piece of debris, because they do fit an ingot profile. We need to get those visually seen with the ROV that we have, the inspection class. If we were to eliminate all areas around the vessel and we're not successful in finding an ingot laying out there for us to see, which would be great, that's the easy way out, we're going to have to enter the ship. Just like in history, that all the little circumstantial evidence that points to this platinum being on this vessel, including this manifest, which, you know, kind of a smoking gun there. Circumstantial evidence keeps pointing to the cargo hold. Like the Edinburgh, where they were successful in recovering 465 bars of gold, they found their cargo inside. Our next step is slowly gravitating back towards the cargo hold. We've been trying to stay away from it because that's going to be the one, probably the more expensive route to go to get this out, and two, the most dangerous for any equipment we send to go do it. However, go big, go home.